This episode of Capes and Lunatics is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. Get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
Avast me hearties, and welcome once again to Full Stream Ahead. I am your host and captain, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me, as always, is me skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Tristan just loves to sing along with the whole gang. Welcome to tonight's episode, Season 1, Episode 8 of Agent Carter, Valediction.
Produced by Tristan Esser. Our episode, that is.
Our episode is always produced by Tristan Esser.
Yeah.
Valediction. An action of saying farewell. A statement or address made at or as a farewell. Peggy faces the full fury of Leviathan as Howard Stark makes his return. Our director this week is Christopher Miziano. Stanley and Jack Kirby are, of course, getting those Marvel Created By credits based on Marvel Comics by. Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely did our created bys for this, and are written by the quadruple-fisted fury that he is Michelle Fazekas and Tara Butters. Just like butter. Okay. So this episode is, I'm trying to remember what this one opens up as. Howard Stark has returned
to turn himself in.
To turn himself in, yes. And, it's, I like his line in there. It's like, who designed the security for this place? The same people who designed the security for the White House. Yeah, they're awful. You should have fired me. Which is very Howard Stark to say. He is kind of lording over it. No, that's not the start of it. The start of this is actually when they examine the aftermath of this theater massacre.
Right. Well, yeah, actually, now I'm rewinding back now. I'm looking at it. It starts with the radio program of Captain America. And, yeah.
There we go. See, we don't even know what we're talking about. Yes, so we open up with our faithful farewell to Nurse Peggy Carver. And as Cap flies his plane over the Sea of Japan, which, it's touching. And, of course, it's meant to parallel with the end of this episode as well. And that farewell to Captain America, which is, in its own way, very beautiful. What I like in this is that what I like in the actual radio show of Captain America, which part of me kind of wants to listen to the whole series.
Yeah.
Because it seems like, they really wrote some interesting old-timey radio show for this. And I kind of think, I would love to, I'm sure you could, take the clips they put there, but I'd like to see, the middle clips. And I thought the actors they got for all the characters were just top drawer. No Bucky, though. No Bucky that we saw, which I think is a little disappointing because Bucky is in the canon. So,
but maybe they're making him sort of like that super secret special ops person that does so much for the country, but no one ever hears of him. That's not.
They put him in the comic books, so
Oh, fair enough.
Because we do see the original Captain America #1 in the movie too, and you do see the little circle with introducing Bucky. I'm sure James Barnes loved that. But yeah, it's a nice farewell at the start because this is about the farewell. And of course, it should be remembered that when this ended, it was not known if it was going to be more Peggy Carter. It was a mid-season on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which continued on long after many people said, "Oh, that'll be the end of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They're done. And actually, what I've noticed with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I've mentioned, is that every time they tell them it's their last season, they really do great, and then they get another season. So,
yeah,
we're on season 7
if they
now.
take a year off and then come back with a new season, everybody would blow their minds.
Oh yeah, well we'll see what they're gonna do, because we got to talk about actually 2 weeks ago episode for that, but we'll get to that as well because that was a lot of fireworks, as they say. But in this one, so speaking of fireworks, they go to the theater where Leviathan had tested this chemical agent that essentially drove everyone mad and turned them into flesh-eating killers, zombie creatures, which is scary as F, without a doubt. And in it, Sousa gets a face full of whatever was left in the canister, and he immediately takes out Thompson, which is in its own way kind of impressive too. They kind of show, and I think we see this when we'll get to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well, that for a one-legged man, Sousa is really capable. Yeah,
and I think secretly everybody knows it too, and I admired Thompson's restraint in recognizing, hey, something's happening here. Let me just protect myself and not really fight back or anything.
Yeah, and but I did, and of course they take him out with a billy club, as you do. But yeah, all in all, it's a really powerful opening. When we're trying to analyze what's going on, that's when Howard comes in and he gives them the backstory on what actually happened at the Battle of Finale, which is that it was essentially something that Howard had created. It was meant to be like a super stimulant to keep soldiers awake so that they could function properly on the front line. But it actually had the exact opposite effect, which is it just gave you all of the problems of sleep deprivation, hallucinations and insanity, but also jammed you up so you didn't fall asleep. So
right, no. So I wonder if it was working in the reverse sort of mechanisms by saying that the chemical worked. Oh no, I guess because it has an immediate effect, so I guess it doesn't. But I was thinking maybe they just stayed awake so long that they started having hallucinations and whatnot. But clearly in the theater, it acts on them immediately. So that's really interesting. On them
immediately. You can kind of imagine someone looking at the chemical responses that occur when someone is sleep deprived and thinking, well, if we can replicate it, it might actually allow us to, combat sleep deprivation.
Okay, so that's
assume that
where
the body's trying to heal itself, but that actually
that's interesting.
It's just, when I'm trying to do if I'm reverse engineering the reverse engineering, that's sort of what I'm thinking. And
that makes sense.
Of course, essentially, it was not something that was ever meant to be used, and definitely not meant to be used as a weapon. But of course, this General McAllister or whomever it was steals Stark's stuff. Which again is why he has such a hard time working with the government.
Right?
Because they will just up and take your stuff, and
irresponsibly.
Yes, and use it irresponsibly too, because they said, well, hey, wouldn't that be useful as a weapon? And again, a gas weapon. This is violating so many Geneva Conventions. And that's the thing. It's like anytime you want someone to violate a Geneva Convention, it always ends poorly. It's never a good idea. And so, because gas weapons were outlawed by World War II, the U.S. was not supposed to be using them. I don't even think the Nazis used gas weapons on soldiers. They used gas for other things. They found a use, but not in the battlefield.
I think World War I is where it was first used, right?
Yeah, World War I, and it was, and it was this kind of, in sort of that peace through superior firepower kind of idea. It was thought to be like a real, that this will actually save more lives because it'll be too horrific to use, and less so. But but the gas attacks of World War I, created by a German agricultural chemist, as I recall, who was a very, very flamboyant, and from what I understand, not necessarily a horrible person, sort of like the guys who built the atomic bomb, not a horrible person, but just very much committed to the idea of, well, what else could we use this ability to, create chlorine gas for? It's like, well, so anyway, that's that. They realize that they need to figure out what Dottie and we actually hear his name again, and it's Fenoff, I believe it is his real. It's not Dr. Evanchiko, it's Dr. Fenoff. Although they are still keeping him Russian. Although when you see that dossier, it kind of looks like a Nazi dossier, so I'm not quite sure where we're supposed to go with all that. But then again, I can't tell a Nazi uniform from a Soviet uniform. So.
Yeah, but isn't Sola Hydra? Or I mean,
yeah, Sola is Hydra.
By proxy, Nazi. So he's supposed to be our Nazi, or the Nazis do exist and Hydra.
Yeah, the Nazis do exist. Hydra is. And there is also this other aspect where Hydra actually predates the Nazis. Hydra is a secret organization, and this is something they get into in S.H.I.E.L.D., and they reference it when we talk about S.H.I.E.L.D. as well, that Hydra has existed for centuries before the Nazis. And this was actually because at the time in the comic books there was this big reveal of the Brotherhood of the S.H.I.E.L.D. And it was suggested that the Brotherhood of the S.H.I.E.L.D. as this organization that dates back to ancient Egyptian times, when this one king with a group of heroes fought off a brood attack, which are these like basically aliens, like xenomorph alien creatures, was able to defeat them, and that formed the Brotherhood of the S.H.I.E.L.D. And then it sort of expands across the West and the East throughout all of the civilized world, as it were. All of the places of learning and culture and science. So a lot in the Middle East, and then eventually working its way through Europe, all the way over to China. And they sort of dominated that hemisphere as the Brotherhood of the S.H.I.E.L.D. And that actually gets referenced in the very first episode of S.H.I.E.L.D., where when they first talk about S.H.I.E.L.D., and they say, there's a strategic homeland intervention espionage law enforcement division, and he says, what does that tell you? What does that mean to you? He says, it means someone really wanted our initials to spell S.H.I.E.L.D. So the idea that Hydra is a more ancient organization than just the Nazis is something that is written into the modern Marvel mythos. And, well, it's not actually in the modern Marvel, it's in the MCU mythos, ironically. It has not been made official in the Marvel mythos yet.
Oh, interesting. So, yes. In the Marvel mythos, it could still be that they represent their version of the Nazis.
Yes, so it's a very interesting. They sort of set it up in this idea because they show that there is this big schism within S.H.I.E.L.D. between interestingly enough, Sir Isaac Newton and Leonardo da Vinci, because they're both immortals in this universe, of course.
Oh, that's cool.
That's Sir Isaac Newton is the guy that seems to be forming Hydra. And
no.
And, well, the idea is, and as it goes, they both want to protect humanity and protect the Earth, and the argument is that Hydra wants to protect the Earth simply by controlling the Earth. That you can't protect it if you can't control it. And once you bring everyone under heel, then we can organize and protect it in a very efficient Newtonian universe. And Da Vinci's, and he's all artsy. And says, no, man's got to be free to make his own choices, dude. So, because he's a Ninja Turtle. Anyway.
That's an interesting dichotomy they've set up than something, more simple than just good and evil. That's really cool.
Oh, it's great. I mean, that's by, he's one of my favorite authors, and I'm blanking on his name all of a sudden. He did a great arc on the Fantastic Four. He's currently doing the major arc. He did the major arc for the Avengers. Hickman. That's Hickman. Hickman is like just chef's kiss of comic book writers right now.
He just did an X-Men story, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, he's in charge of all of X-Men right now.
Right.
So he's completely redefining the X-Men after he did the Fantastic Four, built out the this whole global Avengers storyline that and then he has this ongoing thing called the Brotherhood of the Shield, which I don't know if it's actually been finished, if it's going to be one that's we're just going to periodically have more installments, but yeah. And then Nathaniel Richards and Howard Stark. Howard Stark is one of the members of the Brotherhood of the Shield in that universe, so we'll have to see if they ever come back to that. But in this one, basically they realize that it's an aerosol weapon. They're going to want to fly it. So we've got all the airports locked down, and then Trevor says, "Well, what if there's another airport that you don't have locked down?" And it turns out that
what if they have a helicopter?
Well, you need to still fly those from a place. But yeah, I mean, yeah, if you had your own helicopter, that would work too, arguably. Although helicopters are easier to shoot down because they're slower moving, and
that's true.
And kind of the whole point is they kind of stand still. So
yeah, no, but I mean, if you were doing it, that wouldn't be an issue. You'd say, yeah, shoot me down. The canisters will blow up, and you will aid in the dispersion of this poison.
Well, not necessarily, because you also want to. Well, yeah, because first of all, if it's not released, the canister might not explode. You might not release the chemical. You can make arguments around it, however you want to, but I'm sure there's lots of conversations that can be had as to whether or not the item would detonate upon impact, or if it would have something more happen with it. But getting back to the overall story, we get a flashback to Dottie Underwood as a woman who Howard Stark cannot remember her name, which I think is such a great running gag.
And I feel like part of him is messing around. That's his way of resisting the attempts at, gaining access to his mind.
Well, maybe, but, there's an aspect of they do gain access to his mind. But there's an aspect to it. So, in the last episode we had Dr. Finoff reading from Dr. Faustus, the original the original old story of the man who sells his soul for ultimate knowledge. I think it's called The Tragedy of Dr. Faustus. Not remembering your lover's name, that's actually something that is from I believe it's called Don Juan in Hell. And it's just the idea that when Don Juan goes to hell, he's cursed to be the jester in hell. And he feels this is very offensive to him because he was the great lover, and he should have a better station than being Hell's court jester. And basically what the devil does, he says, well, here's every woman you've ever been with. If you can tell me any one of their names, you don't have to be the court jester. And of course, as they all parade past him, he doesn't know a single one. It's like, I want to say Debbie. It's like not even close. Sarah, you'd think that like with all of the lovers, he might have guessed right once, but the gag
I was just stuck with Debbie until we found a Debbie.
I know I did at least one Debbie. I know there was a Debbie.
That's the way of getting out of that situation.
Yeah, that's the trick.
It's like playing the same lottery number every day. I mean, God forbid, that number comes up tomorrow and you didn't play it. I'm gonna feel real dumb.
Exactly. But anyway, moving on to the story. I think within that there was meant to be something of his hubris in that as well, because obviously it is the sin of hubris. Is the devil's favorite sin, as they say. But getting back to the story, Dottie and Finoff, they're pulled over by a cop, who of course. You worry about this, although Dottie's pretty savvy with it at first, and we don't know what happens with the cop. He just says, "Oh, your taillights out," and the whole thing there. And then you hear the call coming on the radio, and you worry about that cop. But we see later that the cop is okay, because after Stark turns himself in, they decide to use Stark as bait to let them know that Stark's back in custody, and now they can capture him because they want to really make him responsible. They're going to make him responsible. They were going to just steal the plane and do the plan, but they figure it would delay them, and it winds up in it because they decide to come and get Stark to draw them out of hiding, so they can make Stark suffer as well.
Yeah.
And in that, they realize that what they're going to do is, they don't realize it yet, because they realize it after someone shoots Stark, or shoots at Stark. And they run up to the office building across from S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, which, again, raises that question. Why are you, if S.H.I.E.L.D.'s a top secret organization, why are you holding it in front of the telephone company that is your secret S.H.I.E.L.D. base? But S.H.I.E.L.D. is not good on secrets. That's the thing. S.H.I.E.L.D. is not really, they're not good at the whole, shh, it's a secret kind of thing. So
they're just relying on the community to be on board and be like, no, we didn't see nothing.
Yeah. So anyway, what's interesting here is the idea that they try to get Howard to safety. They hand him off to a cop. That cop is the cop that Finoff hypnotized in the previous scene. And this is what I gotta say. You gotta love Finoff in the idea that he understands strategy. So thought he could kill him. He could make this guy kill himself. Probably not the best move right now to have this black cop, kill himself, because he might prove useful. So they keep him on retainer essentially, and it pays off because he brings Stark to them, and now they're in a race to catch up with Stark. Finoff manages to hypnotize Tony, Howard, and makes him believe he has found Captain America and he can fly this plane to save Captain America. This is as the S.H.I.E.L.D. our SSR team shows up, and they get into an amazing first off, the Peggy Dottie rematch is just it's just fantastic.
Yeah,
it is some of the best fighting you're going to see on TV. And they make great use of the area and the space, fighting on top of a plane, falling off of a plane, people disappearing. It's all really fantastic, and you gotta love every minute of that fight. But what I really love in this, the thing that really makes this scene work, is after Thompson is captured, Sousa comes in, and Finoff starts talking to him, and Thompson's like, don't listen to him. His voice is, dangerous. Da 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 da. And as he comes forward, Sousa just, and it seems like Sousa is under his thrall and can't, but it's just he's walking funny. And then Sousa just one punches Finoff, which is just beautiful. And you see him taking the earplugs out because obviously that makes absolute sense.
and having that, it makes it seem like that scene seem much more interesting and tense, because imagine Sousa coming and going, I don't know what he's saying, but I'm gonna point the gun at him and hope that works. And he keeps inching closer. He's like, oh, this seems to be working, because he can't hear him. That luckily Finoff is saying point the gun at him, but it just works out that way, and that makes the scene so much more interesting.
Yes, and that is what is great on it. It is just, and again, what's smart about that is Sousa had the sense to shove wax in his ears, because he looked at it, he said, okay, what's the danger? He looked at the situation. This is why Sousa, we see more of him next season, but this idea that he actually is a really great spy.
Well, although it's Thompson says it to him earlier too. He goes, hey, listen, don't let him talk. If he talks, you're dead. So, in Thompson's mind, that means you shoot him on sight. Now, here's how clever Sousa is. Sousa says, we don't have to shoot him. There's another way around this where we can still capture him. And there's wax in my ear. So I was like, that's really does prove why Sousa is such a great agent.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. And because for what it's worth, Thompson is, as we've seen, kind of in the position, not for what he's done, but what people think he's done. And I think that is telling of the whole story. After Sousa has been knocked out, we have Peggy Carter getting on the line to try and reach out to Howard to basically tell him, to try and talk him down. Jarvis gets into another fully armed plane, by the way, which is its own. That, Howard, he just keeps fully armed, attack fighters in his private airfield too. Second Amendment.
In the secret one that the government didn't know about.
Yeah, well, hey, Second Amendment, man, you gotta. And to be fair, Howard's not
that
wrong.
Applies to your planes with bombs on it.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
hey, I like it.
He's just a collector. That's
Right on. Yeah. Right.
So, but yeah. He goes. So Jarvis is flying after him, and he's got Howard in his sights, and he's, I can take the shot, and Peggy doesn't want Howard to die. And she's just trying to reach out to him. And you get this really beautiful scene. It's a kind of a parallel between, again, when she was reaching out to Cap at the end of First Avenger. And she's just, asking him, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do this. And then Howard, who has been, just in this kind of state where it's like, Cap was the one thing I ever made better. All I make is bombs, but Cap was something that was good, and I lost him. And it's like this thing that eats up at him, because he helped to make something great once, and he could never replicate it. And that ate at him. But
little does he realize, soon he is going to create something almost as worthy.
Oh, his son. Tony? Yeah. Well, yeah. Although Tony had his rough patches too.
Of course, you can't be that great without having that struggle to show you what the right path is. No,
this is true. This is very true. But Tony does get talked down by Peggy, and they land. We see that Finoff is all bound and gagged because they're not going to let him talk. And I like the exchange between Jarvis and Tony at the end. It's like, so you're actually going to shoot? And he says, yes, I thought that was what you would have wanted. It's like, no, this is not what I would have wanted. Just for future reference, I never want you to kill me.
Don't let anyone construct a narrative where that thought is a logical conclusion. You've taken a wrong turn somewhere.
Yes. Although, to be fair, if Peggy hadn't been able to get through to him, that would have been the only answer. Anyway, in this we get the very end. We get Thompson trying to be. Does he try to be nice to everyone and say, well, it was a team effort at least?
He starts to, but when the senator or the congressman comes in and starts congratulating him, it's like he's between a rock and a hard place too.
Yeah,
it's not just him, versus our way of looking at the world. It's him versus how the rest of his world is looking at this situation and what he's supposed to do. And I almost think that he's in his mind. You could see him look over to Peggy, and the look I saw was, "Hey, we're all gonna rise if I rise. Let me get this, and there'll always be a position for you," kind of things. Like, don't worry, I'm gonna take care of all my people, but let me get to, I'm in the best position to. I don't know. And she really?
No, and it's a fair cop, but it's also how wonderful that the thing that you're going to do also helps you first.
Yeah, but I mean,
we saved your bacon, and it is good that he, and for what it's worth, he, both Sousa and Peggy get something out of this, which we'll see in season 2. But at this moment, it's not even clear if she's going to stay with SSR because we don't know yet.
Right. Right.
They actually kind of leave. Yeah.
And the thing is, it's like she can accomplish more in the shadows without having the responsibilities that come with a position of power. Let her be as malleable as she can be to solve the problems that need solving that can't be encumbered by red tape.
That actually makes a really interesting point. I had never considered it before. Is if Peggy getting made director of S.H.I.E.L.D. as she becomes the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the first short. No, the first short. That's how the first Peggy Carter short ends. That was sort of the test for this, where she finds the she has to get the what was it, the Zodiac formula.
Oh,
which is another thing that runs through these stories. But it's a really good short. You should. It's online. I think you can get it on YouTube. Still mad they aren't on Disney Plus. All of the great Marvel MCU shorts, they're not on.
Oh,
Disney
like
Plus.
the one with the dude with the 12 rings.
Exactly. The 10. Yeah,
that is brilliant. It is so good. That little short.
And that one is the hardest to find of all of them. Like, I think you can find a fairly decent copy of the Agent Carter one online, but it's not on Disney Plus, and that's very frustrating. But yeah, I recommend you watch that. And I actually think she's in the FBI in that, so that sort of suggests at some point she leaves the SSR and then winds up at the FBI, where it's kind of like starting back from square one, which is like, why did I do this to myself? But well, but maybe after. Well, actually. No, Susan's a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent by then. But anyway, we'll have to see what happens. And that may be semi out of continuity, or just with all the time travel, that's no longer the way the storyline played out, which is always that great thing we can say now. Any time travel that happened after, everything now has changed. But
yeah,
going back to the idea that maybe Hydra got Peggy put in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D. expressly to tie her down with red tape.
Ooh.
Because she was too much of a threat in the field.
Right.
And, we could kill her, though we've already killed Sousa, and if we start killing too many top-ranking S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, people are going to notice. So what's the best way to make a great soldier ineffective? Promote him. Promote him off the field. Put him behind a desk. Because behind a desk, it's very hard to do your job,
Yeah.
And that was always the problem with Fury. Never liked being behind the desk. But it is an interesting conundrum there. But and to that end, our very last scene in this episode is Arnim Zola. Well, first off, we see Finoff going to prison with some kind of crazy Hannibal Lecter mask on to keep him from talking.
Yeah, it seems like if he moves it, and I'm just wondering, how does he eat? Do they feed him with like a tube that sticks down his nose? No, they would. I mean, you don't have to go through his nose. You could actually have him eat like a slurry, that just just a liquid diet. So he's going to get a lot of use out of that toilet. But aside from that, yeah. I mean, it is arguably cruel and unusual, but until someone else figures out, why don't we just have everyone wear earplugs when they deal with him? It's going to be difficult. Or use that gas or whatever on him and make sure he doesn't have a larynx anymore.
Well, that'd be awful. Yeah, but we actually. Again, you can't necessarily mutilate someone, though,
Yes, exactly, which is the point Zola makes. Hey, look how lucky you are. Look how fortunate you are. You're in an American prison. They're not going to do anything worse than this to you.
Exactly.
And we have all the time in the world to plan.
And maybe we can communicate some other way. And, gives him the pen and paper. And for what it's worth, the fact that they put Zola and Finoff in the same cell suggests that Hydra had already influenced S.H.I.E.L.D. by this point. So there's a lot of wheels moving here. Really implies, and again, that which we actually see when we go back in time, when we get over to our good friends at the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the next episode we're doing over there. So in the meantime, any final thoughts on tonight's episode, Mozz?
No, I think we got to it. That was pretty good.
Okay,
I'm excited for the next season now.
Oh yeah, and it gets really exciting next season. I gotta tell you, it's gonna be fun. But you know what? If you like solving problems, like me and Mozz just did, figuring out how deep the Hydra conspiracy goes, you may want to go help out private investigator Michelle Gray, who needs help to solve a cold case over at huntakiller.com. Huntakiller.com, it's a sponsor of the show. Go over there, get a mystery room, get an escape room delivered to your door every month at huntakiller.com. It's fun. And, I don't know if there's any audio GIFs in there, but if there are, or if you're just listening to the show, you might want to go over to tweakedaudio.com. That's tweakedaudio.com, all one word, and get yourself some high-quality Tweaked Audio headsets, also a sponsor of the show. And anything else you feel like buying, just go down to our show notes. You're going to find that little old Amazon link. Click on that. It's going to take you to Amazon. Cost you nothing. Give so much back to us when you do that. And while you're there, check out Pod Life, the book, a book that tells you everything you want to know about the people, places, and things that make up the world of podcasting. And if anyone does any of those things and they'd like to talk to you about it, Mozz, how can they find you?
Or they can email me at mozzmanzoor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzoor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And, of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way that they did at the turn of the century at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. And, of course, follow me on Twitter as I live tweet Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. while it lasts every Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEssessr. Look for the 2 E's in the middle.
For quality. Ding!
There we go. Thank you, Mozz. All right, you scurvy landlubbers. You've survived another trip down the raucous main of Peggy Carter. Tune in next week when we explore Peggy Carter Season 2 on Full Stream Ahead. Arrgh.
Yarg.